Nuclear arms politics, once such an important political issue in our country, now a relatively obscure issue in our country. And I began to wonder, why is that? Why is it that what was once such an important social-political issue in our country, and indeed the world, is now a relatively obscure thing? I decided to find some answers. In this video, you will hear and you will see the results of the interviews that I have taken on the subject, as I have set out to interview the students and staff of Oakland University. Now, I do not profess this to be a professional interview. I am myself a student here, and this documentary is itself a student project. However, I do feel that this is an important issue, and thus I feel that this is an important project. Regardless, I hope you enjoy it. I started by interviewing 3 of my social contacts, all of whom declined to have their names given as part of this project. However, I found opinions to be fairly interesting. While at the same time as that they gave different specific reasons, they all had a similar outlook on the subject. My first social contact mentioned something along the lines of how nuclear arms politics is a world issue, and he was used to watching the local news. Thus, he didn't hear about the subject very often. My second interviewee concurred with this opinion, but also mentioned that the local news also has a tendency to be somewhat more faddist. One week it may be about Charlie Sheen, the next Wienergate, and next week, who knows? And it led to a very ADD experience where it was easy to get used to sensational topics, nuclear arms politics being among possibly that list. I found this to be fairly interesting. However, my third interview subject also had an interesting opinion. My third interview subject mentioned that the reason that he doesn't think or hear much about nuclear arms politics is so much that it is an out-of-sight, out-of-mind subject. When I asked him what this meant, he mentioned that part of the comfort that he derived about the issue was that politicians and other governmental types that are paid to look into this issue and understand this issue better than he were in charge of the subject. They were the ones that were able to think about it in better terms than, say, he was able to, and that as a result it was perhaps more appropriate for him to think about other things that needed to be done. As a result, he felt that perhaps the local news had a similar tack, and that, as a result, if you just watched the local news, it remained an out-of-sight, out-of-mind issue. I found this to actually be a fairly interesting opinion. However, as a result of these 3 being unwilling to give their names, I decided that it was time to go out and take a few interviews myself. Okay, well, first off, how much do you hear about nuclear arms politics in the news today?
Very little.
Very little?
There was the START treaty deal. That was mostly all you really heard about.
Do you watch mainly local news?
No. I watch almost no local news. I just watch national news. Local news is boring.
Okay. Do you ever think about it on your own?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Why do you think people don't think about it very much? Is it just an out-of-sight, out-of-mind thing? Do you think they just have better things to do?
I think it doesn't seem relevant anymore. We haven't used them since the 40s, and people, the Cold War is over, so people don't really care too much.
Okay. Thanks. Do you have an opinion?
Sure. It's nuclear arms is what you asked?
Nuclear arms politics. Do you hear much about it in the news, or do you think there's a reason?
No, anything except for like if North Korea does some test or whatever, but I don't know. I feel like it makes people nervous, so they just don't think about it.
Okay. Do you think it's largely an out-of-sight, out-of-mind issue? The reason that people don't hear much about it?
Yeah.
Okay.
No one really thinks about it.
Alright. Do you ever hear much about it yourself? Do you ever think about it?
Very rarely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright. Looking for more answers, a friend of mine recommended the site Information is Beautiful, mentioning that there was an article about why the nuke should not be here. actually found it to be quite interesting.